Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for our webinar today. My name is Michael Siggins, and I'm the publisher of Channel Pro Magazine. And we are very excited to have the teams here from Tech Data and Microsoft. Our topic today for today's webinar is Enterprise Mobility plus Security. We'll be talking about a lot of the great opportunities within that topic today. My special guest presenter today is JJ Antequino. He's Partner Technology Strategist at Microsoft. And when we do these webinars, we always love it if the audience can participate. So to do so, if you look down the lower left of your screen, you should see a chat area. If you can send your questions in there, we'll try to get to as many of those questions as we can because we do have a lot of content to cover today. One of the most common questions is, will the slide deck be available? And I'll answer that one right now. Yes, it will be. And we will get that to you as a follow-up after the event. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to JJ. JJ, please take it away.
All right. Thank you very much, Michael, and good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on Enterprise Mobility plus Security. You know, Microsoft offers a whole host of different cloud services, and I know many of you are probably familiar with Office 365 and hopefully are diving into the world of Azure. But when we look at building out a complete solution for your customer, we believe that Microsoft can solve all of their needs, right? And one of those needs obviously has to do with security. And at the same time, we also realize that being secure in a mobile, bring your own device type world, you need a solution that's going to be able to provide for that cloud first kind of mentality that your customers are rolling into, right? And so we believe that our solution, Enterprise Mobility plus Security, is going to be one of those things that will fill a lot of those needs. You'll notice that we keep on saying Enterprise Mobility plus Security. You might have heard of a solution in the past called EMS, and that's still the same, three letters that we're using that used to be called the Enterprise Mobility Suite. Well, this is an evolution. Enterprise Mobility plus Security is an evolution of that Enterprise Mobility Suite. And we're going to talk about some of the core components and the overarching message that you're going to be able to provide to your end customers. So the deck that I'm showing you today and the deck that you're going to be receiving after this webinar is going to be something that you can actually present to your end customers, right, and give them that same type of message that I'm going to be going through with you today. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about what we believe is a very cool solution for you to be able to sell through Tech Data. So Enterprise Mobility plus Security, what do customers need? What are they looking for? They want to be able to secure against new threats. As you move into this world of the cloud, a lot of times you think about protecting people and from things that are coming from the outside. But when you're in a web browser, you're already kind of in the middle of what's going on inside of your network, and things now spread because they've already kind of entered through the internet in that way. So how do we secure against some of those new threats? We also still want to be able to tell our customers who are asking about user freedom. When a person buys a brand new Windows phone or an iPhone or an Android device, that's a device that they love, they customize. They want to be able to be free to use that device as they'd like to use it. But if you're bringing that device into a business, we need to make sure that that device is protected. And then finally, we want to be able to have you do more with less. We realize that budgets are shrinking from an IT perspective. People are looking for ways to cut some of their costs, and we believe that we want you to have to build on an existing solution as opposed to buying brand new components that might not integrate into what you already have today. And so, with Enterprise Mobility plus Security, we are going to give you that identity-driven security, productivity without compromise, and give you some great comprehensive solutions that can scale across all the devices that you have. All right, so let's get into it and talk a little bit about some of these different areas of focus. It's interesting. When we surveyed companies across the country and across the globe, we asked, have you been a victim of a data breach? And data breach can happen in multiple ways, right? And so what we were kind of concentrating here was on the topic of passwords. Have you been breached because of weak passwords, stolen passwords, shared passwords? And 63% of companies did admit that they have been breached in some way because of password strength in the past. And so that's actually a pretty scary statistic, because once a company has been breached, on average it takes almost 200 days before anyone even realizes that a company has been breached. So think about how much damage a hacker or a malicious person can do within a couple of hours, let alone 200 days. And so we need to find a way to protect ourselves from those things happening. And that's the first core component that we're going to talk about right now, because when you protect your identity and you protect people from being able to get into the network by means of social engineering, for example, you're taking a great leap into providing great security for your business. And so when I think about a lot of the companies that you're working with today, many of them that use Microsoft solutions are going to have an on-premises environment. And they might even be hybridized right now, moving into the cloud. But when you think about an on-premises environment, you're thinking about how you are authenticating people and devices on your network. And you're normally going to have something like Windows Server Active Directory. And you may have some other third-party directories as well in an on-premises environment. But the point is, you've got a secure environment already that exists that you're going to be able to authenticate against, apply group policy against, protect that internal environment and assign specific resources. But as your company has grown and you're realizing the value of the cloud, and as I kind of alluded to just a second ago with that hybrid type environment, you have now acquired some cloud services to go along with your on-premises environment. So perhaps you're subscribing to Office 365 with your customers. Maybe you've got a box.com address or account rather, Salesforce.com, Dropbox, Amazon, Google. You've got all these different types of cloud environments, and the problem with those different environments is that each of those ones have their own different directory. They have their own usernames and passwords. And now you've got users that are logging into multiple cloud services, and unfortunately now they are forgetting, what was my password for my Office 365 account versus my on-premises account versus my Box.com account versus one of my Google services. And so trying to manage all of that can become a nightmare for an administrator. And so the answer to that is to provide that identity foundation and that true simple connection between the on-premises world and the cloud. And I know that when I present this and I talk to customers, you can kind of get into the weeds talking about the individual components. But for you guys on the line right now, I do want to kind of specify some of the actual solutions or products within the Enterprise Mobility Plus Security offering that kind of spells out what we're talking about right now. So that simple connection that bridges that gap between on-premises and the cloud is the Microsoft Azure Active Directory offering. And you may not know this already, but if you happen to have an Office 365 account, believe it or not, it's already running on top of Microsoft Azure Active Directory. When you expose additional functionality through the purchase of the Enterprise Mobility Plus Security offering, that's when you can really extend this to beyond Office 365 and into other cloud services. So Microsoft Azure Active Directory is going to provide things like single sign-on. When I log into my on-premises environment, I want to just be able to say, look, when you log in once, that's going to log you into all your other cloud services. So we're basically federating, essentially, all of your other cloud services with what you've got on your on-premises environment. So it's really easy to do that. And actually we've got thousands of different cloud services that are inside of our cloud marketplace that will allow you to create that single sign-on connection. And what's great about this is that now I've created that single sign-on environment. And if a user happens to leave the business, they get fired or they leave on their own, or perhaps something happens where that person is no longer part of the business, I can easily, through Microsoft Azure Active Directory, from one location, cut off their access to everything. Right? I don't have to go in and necessarily change their passwords and do things like that and deactivate their accounts right at that exact moment. If it's an emergency, for example, I can just do it in that one place, which saves you a lot of time and adds to the security that you've got in your business. We also realize that because you have all of these different usernames and passwords that you've got to think about, there's going to be a time when a user does forget their password. But if you're using a solution like Microsoft Azure Active Directory, you've got self-service password reset. I think we found that every single time a user forgets their password and they've got to call an IT person for help to resolve that password issue, that's at a cost of about $10 per incident. So if you think about hundreds of people, for example, losing their password, forgetting it, that could be a significant cost and also a time sink from your IT staff. And that's one thing that we want to help you save money on with the EMS suite. All right, so now that we've thought about identity and getting you logged in and having that one throat to choke, I guess you could say, from an authentication perspective, we still need to provide some additional protection, right? So we realize that users are going to be starting to log in from a laptop a desktop, a mobile phone, a tablet. And so when they do that, maybe we have a person who does have the correct username and password. The problem is that a username and password, although we can create strength in that username and password by saying, look, you have to have special characters, capital letters, you can't use the same password, the past 2 or 3 passwords, we still realize that a password can be shared. So how do we stop that from happening? Right? We then add in another component of protection, which is multi-factor authentication. When someone types in their username and password, they can get logged in on a lot of environments. But when you throw EMS into the mix here and that multi-factor authentication, we can say, yes, you might have the right username and password, but if you really want to be able to get onto our network, you still have to bypass another authentication method, and that is MFA. And so with MFA, we've got different ways to authenticate against EMS, and that would be our Azure Active Directory, and that would be, for example, for a phone call that might be sent to a landline or to a cell phone number, or you could perhaps even have a authentication application installed on your iPhone, your Windows Phone, or Android device, where you simply type in a PIN and then you're logged in, right? And so now you realize that the only person that can log in with that username and password is the person who also has the device that's aligned with that user account. So that's strength right there in terms of security. So let's say we do provide that right username and password and so forth. We still need to make sure that the person who's logging in is going to have a device that is secure and a device that is up to date. So, like for example, if I log in with a Windows PC that doesn't have the latest hotfixes on there, that doesn't have the right antivirus malware signatures on there, we want to make sure that we get that machine up to date before we allow it to access any of our on-premises or cloud services. So those are some of the conditions, like the location, device state, user application, and risk factors that we take a look at. And that's what Azure AD Identity Protection is going to be able to provide. When we look at a person logging in, if that person logs in, perhaps they're using the right username and password, but they're logging in with an anonymous ID. That's probably, anonymous IP address. That's probably something we need to assess as a potential risk. Because normally if that person is logging in from an IP address within the network, it's probably not, it could be someone who's hacked in, right, potentially, but it's not going to be as high a risk as someone who's logging in with an anonymous ID or a foreign IP address. And so that's one of the things we're going to take a look at. And so if they've also been trying to log in multiple times with the wrong password, yeah, it could be someone fat-fingering something, but if it's happening quite frequently, that's another thing that we've got to assess for risk. A final thing that we think about with the Azure AD Privileged Identity Management component of this is that there are going to be times when we do have power users that are logging into an environment. And they normally, if in a non-EMS world, have full admin privileges to be able to kind of do whatever they need to do within an environment. But we want to make sure that people aren't abusing this or doing things when they shouldn't be doing them. So let's say they're a global admin. That global admin should be able to have the power to do what they need to do during, for example, working hours. But if they try to use that global admin privileges between the hours of 3 a.m. and 7 a.m., we need to make sure that that's a genuine need and not just give that openly and freely to anyone unless they actually need it. So we can monitor and manage that type of privileged identity. So, for example, again, with all of this right here, we are assessing all the risk factors. We're making sure the device is up to date. And if we find out that there are some issues, we're not going to let them on. We're going to block access until they remediate what needs to be remediated on their machine. So to kind of give you some more, ideas as to what we can do, and I think when I go through each of these different components, think about the opportunity that you've got to just talk about even just one of the things I'm going over, right, and seeing how powerful just proposing one of these individual solutions within EMS, you can build a whole business around. And what's great is that you get all of this with EMS as a bundled kind of suite, I guess you could say. So let's think about cloud apps. As I kind of mentioned, there are a number of folks who will, they'll use a number of different cloud services. And they've seen the value of the cloud, and you've given them an authorized that Office 365 account. You've given them that Salesforce.com account. They have access to Dropbox, and so those are legitimate cloud services that they should be allowed to get access to. But as more and more people kind of access the cloud and they look at all of the other types of cloud services that they can use, they see that, hey, this one's a cool one that my friend told me about, and it's easy for me to log into a web browser and just create an account. The thing is, you as the IT person, as the partner, you don't want them using some random cloud services that you haven't vetted, that you haven't tested to make sure they work inside of your environment. So with cloud app security, this is where we kind of discover that shadow IT. Meaning we discover here that they are using apps, and I'm sorry, specifically cloud apps, that you didn't know about. And so we want to find out how that's happening, and we actually can do that using the cloud app security model inside of EMS. And so we take a look at the database of cloud services that Microsoft and our security team has put together, and we find out that if they are accessing cloud services that that may have had a history of being malicious in some way, we can kind of track that and assess that and let the through our reporting process, let the IT admins or you as partners know that there is an issue there. The biggest component that I think that a lot of people don't think about from a security perspective from cloud security is they think about, maybe I'm going to buy a special cloud security app, a special identity app, but it also means I'm probably going to have to buy a separate mobile device management solution as well. And so you might take a look at some of the competitors out there, and you've been evaluating, how I protect some of my mobile devices and phones and tablets and so forth. Inside of the Enterprise Mobility Plus Security Suite, you are going to have mobile device management as well. And we take a look at this from a mobility app management component more than anything else, right? And so what you're using here is the Microsoft Intune component. With Microsoft Intune, we're able to help data from leaking out of mobile apps. We're able to secure our devices, manage different applications, push down applications. We are also able to for example, wipe devices if they seem to be devices that are no longer going to be part of our organization. And so this gives us a lot of reporting capabilities. I know that a lot of you might be thinking, okay, so I'm mainly going to be managing Windows devices. So if I am managing Windows devices, what type of additional security do I have there? Well, hopefully you know this, but if you are thinking about other antivirus solutions that might be out there, the Intune component actually includes an antivirus engine within it, and so that's one less service that you might have to subscribe to. On the last column there, you see Azure Information Protection, and this is kind of built on a foundation of Azure Rights Management, if you're familiar with that. And with Azure Information Protection, here's where I'm able to take a look at the data that I've got in the cloud or on premises, and here's where I can classify it, label it, as well as decide how that data can actually be delivered outside or within my organization. We're also able to do things like say, look, I'm going to send this email or this document to someone within the organization, but I don't want anyone to see it except for these people, or I don't want anyone to be able to forward it or print it or save it or reply all. Those are some of the things that you're going to be able to do with Azure Information Protection. So you're seeing that I'm talking about all of this stuff, all the security stuff. You would have to buy each of these components separately if you didn't have a solution like EMS. Some other things that we've got going on, and I've already talked about Cloud App Security and Azure Active Directory Premium, but we again still realize that we're very much in this hybrid world, right? And we're still wanting to make sure that we're protecting what I think is the most critical directory, which is that on-premises directory. And so with Microsoft Advanced Threat Analytics, or ATA, here's where we look at the behavior of how people are logging in and logging off your network, and we discover here, this is something that that's checked over time, right? We have to run it for a little while inside of an organization to see how people are authenticating, and we realize, look, if I'm logging in normally from my devices I live in Orlando, by the way, in Orlando or in Tampa, where the Microsoft office is over there, or in Clearwater where Tech Data is, those are normal things that I do. And so I'm going to look at the behavior of what's going on and say, look, that's normal. JJ normally logs in from from someplace in Florida. But at the same time, if I'm logging in or trying to log in from somewhere in a foreign country, that's not normal behavior. And so we flag that and report on that. Okay, moving along. All right, so I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, right? We've got these unsecured apps. 80% of businesses realize that people are exploring new cloud services or installing applications that they shouldn't have on there. And so what we want to do is make sure that we protect ourselves from those types of things. And so here's where we're going to spend a little bit more time talking about that mobile device application information protection portion of EMS, where we are managing and securing devices. We are managing our Office mobile apps. We're providing data level protection, and then showing you that user self-service kind of environment that I talked about a little bit earlier. And so we do things a little bit differently with EMS as it pertains to mobile app management. Instead of creating separate sandboxes on a device to run applications, we take a different approach, and we take a look at an app-first kind of approach with identity. And in this picture, or in this diagram, or the slide rather, you see an iPad. And on that iPad, we've got managed apps and we've got personal apps. Those managed apps would be applications that we realize people need them to be able to operate within the business. So in this example, Outlook, Excel, Word, OneDrive for Business, Skype for Business, PowerPoint. Those are apps that we want to be able to manage inside of our environment. But because this iPad is actually owned by the individual that's working inside of the business, and they're taking it home, they bought it on their own dime, they've got their own maybe cellular subscription if it's got cellular access. They still want to be able to play around with Twitter and Facebook and Netflix and use the Kindle app and so forth, and we want to still provide them that freedom. So in this case, you can see that because we have a managed app, which is Word, we're still going to allow them to create their own personal documents. But when a document has been downloaded or accessed from a corporate managed app, for example, like a Word document that came off of the SharePoint site or off of a OneDrive for Business site, that's going to be corporate data, and we want to make sure that stuff is secured. But they are still using that same Word app. So if, for example, they created some recipes or flyers for their kids' baseball game, or did something like that, those would be considered personal data items. So if that device were to ever leave the business, we would wipe the corporate data, but still leave them with their personal information or their personal documents. And that's kind of the difference in how we do things here with EMS. And a quick example of how this works on the right-hand side would be that I've got that managed app, right? So I've got Outlook, and I receive an email attachment, which happens to be an Excel file. And inside that Excel file, there are things that look very interesting to me that I want to play around with and copy into a different document. And so I highlight a couple cells, and I copy them, and then I decide to try to paste the information from those cells. Well, if I try to paste them into a personal notepad app or a personal document processing app or something like that, that's not going to be allowed to occur because that managed app has corporate information that it's trying to copy from. However, if I do decide to copy that information into a fellow managed app like Word, that paste does succeed, and it is allowed to actually paste into there. Now, when I go to save that document that has that newly pasted information in there, I won't be able to save it to any personal storage, like a personal OneDrive site. But if I do paste it into a OneDrive for Business corporately managed app, that save is able to execute and save properly up there. So just different ways to think about how we manage our data inside of EMS. And so when you think about your policies and rules that you have for data that's coming into a business, emails and documents and so forth, we want to make sure that the data within those documents are classified properly, secured properly, and not allowed to kind of leak outside of the business. And so with information protection, when we see, there's an example of an Excel file, and that Excel file happens to have social security numbers in there, credit card numbers in there, or some type of identifying, PII or personally identifying information, we could flag that as strictly confidential. We could say that maybe it's an internal only document, maybe it's confidential, or maybe it's something that's completely unrestricted. So we can automatically have that set up so that if it detects that kind of heuristics for a for a social security number, that we disallow that email from being forwarded or printed off or saved or anything like that. And at the same time, we also realize that when emails come in that have personal information or that have financial information, that could be sent over or flagged with a finance type of flag, or it could be listed something that goes to human resources or to sales or to marketing. So later on, like if we are asked for an audit and we need to be able to find all the financial documents that have Social Security numbers in there or something like that, we can easily search for those and expose them if we need to. What I've got on the screen right here is the kind of self-service type portal of what you might be seeing on an iPad, a Surface, a phone type device, or even a full laptop like a MacBook or a Surface, or rather just a regular notebook. And so what we want to do is we want to kind of provide a consistent experience across all of your devices, so that when someone logs in to their company portal, they have the ability to access the services from a cloud perspective or the apps that they're allowed to go through. This is also the portal that you're going to see if someone does need a self-service reset their password because they may have forgotten it. Here's where they can manage all of their apps, the different groups, where they can request access to different applications. You can also rebrand this so that this company portal could have a custom logo for the end user company. I mean, if you want to set this up, kind of like the partner service that you're offering as well, you can kind of brand it, with your information too. So it's really cool, and allows you to have different views for different individuals. So if I am in the HR department, I'm going to see a certain number of apps. If I'm in sales, a different set of apps. So every user, depending on the group that they're in, can have a different experience, but still have a similar experience across all their devices. So I've talked a lot, right, about some of the core components of what you've got inside of EMS, and realize that this is all part of this one suite. And part of the reason why we're doing this and bundling all this stuff together, for lack of a better term right now, is that we want to make sure that you can still fit this within your budget. Global IT budgets, they're limited in growth in 2016, and we're very sensitive to that. And so we provide a very comprehensive, integrated, and cost-effective solution that integrates with what you have. It's simple to set up, easy to maintain, and also saves you some money. Kind of the way that the cloud works in general, we're always going to be up to date. You get real-time updates that keep up with the new devices and apps that you're going to be able to provision. So just like with Office 365, you're going to get the latest and greatest that's available to you, as soon as it's able to ship in the cloud. That happens with EMS. It also works with what you have. We're going to give you a great solution that works against the iPads that you already have, the Windows devices that you already have, the Android devices that you already have, and we're also going to enable to use your existing investments, enable to integrate with EMS. You don't have to recreate your Active Directory, right? We are using EMS as kind of a bridge into the cloud. And as I mentioned, simple to set up and easy to connect to. So let's just show you, again, what we've talked about, right? And from the very beginning, we're providing that identity, access, and management, and that's going to give you things like single sign-on, the MFA, the multi-factor authentication, and the management with risk-based protection. We're going to give you managed mobile productivity with mobile device and app management, and also deep integration with Office 365. We're going to give you information protection for your email and all your file types, and this happens not only in the cloud, but even against documents that you have on a local on-premises file server. We can create that intelligent and automated classification labeling system so that you don't have to go in there and manually move things into different locations. We can do that automatically based on the heuristics. Identity-driven security gives you that enterprise-grade visibility and reporting so that you can protect your cloud applications. And we also provide you protection from advanced targeted attacks. Again, you put this all together and you think about all the different things that we're doing, and you really see that EMS can provide some great value to you. And this is these are the individual components that you're going to be using when you get EMS, right? Across identity and access management, the mobile productivity, information protection, identity-driven security. Each of those areas of focus right there kind of align to an individual Microsoft solution that we've kind of gone through during the course of this presentation. So the offerings that we have today are kind of based on the same type of labeling system that you have with Office 365, and that is the E3 family and the E5 family. So the E3 is going to provide you with Azure Active Directory Premium P1, Microsoft Intune, Azure Information Protection P1, and then Microsoft Advanced Threat Analytics, so ATA. When you want to bump it up a level, that's where you go into Azure Active Directory Premium P2, Information Protection P2, and then that Microsoft Cloud App Security to kind of detect some of that shadow IT out there, and that's part of the E5 plan. So E5 includes obviously everything within E3. And when you think about how this actually comes across from a pricing perspective, it's actually very, very attractive. Again, when you think about, how much would this cost, going with third-party solutions or splitting this up individually? The E3 plan has an estimated retail price of $8.75 per user per month, and it's made up of those components that I just talked about. And what we find that's really interesting here is that if someone really just wants to think about only the single sign-on capability or the multi-factor authentication with Azure Active Directory Premium, which is $5.10 on its own, if they're even thinking about using one of those secondary solutions like Intune or Threat Analytics or Information Protection, it almost makes no sense not to get the E3 plan, because not only do you get the great cloud services that come along with it, but it also comes with Windows Server CAL rights. So, I know we're moving to more and more towards this hybrid environment, and people are, may not be purchasing servers on premises, but with these Windows Server CAL rights, now I don't have to think about, buying individual CALs for my users either, because it's going to come included with that E3 plan. The E5 plan steps up to a total of $15 per user per month, but it gives you, additional protection in the cloud with the P2 versions of Azure Active Directory and Information Protection along with the Cloud App Security. So that's kind of in a nutshell, how we think about enterprise mobility plus security and all those different components. I know I've talked about a lot, and you could spend hours just going into individual areas of focus here and building business practices against each one of those. And so what I want to kind of turn my attention to right now is how we position this with customers who have already purchased Microsoft solutions like Office 365. So, Office 365, don't get me wrong, it offers a ton of great value. It's already got a lot of security built in there. And as I mentioned, it's already built on Azure Active Directory, so, you've already got that going for you there. But, we realize that Azure Active Directory, is great with Office 365, but if you have more than one cloud app, you want to have single sign-on for all those apps. You want to have advanced multi-factor authentication as well as advanced security reporting along everything that might be being logged into with those cloud apps. There's basic mobile device management via mobile device management and Intune inside of Office 365, but with Intune inside of the EMS offering, here's where you get that true PC management. Right, and you also have the ability to have certificate provisioning, the mobile app management that I talked about with being able to prevent cut, copy, paste, save as, and so forth from corporate apps to personal apps. You don't get that unless you have EMS. From an information protection perspective, Office 365, especially inside the E3 plan, you do have some rights management in there. You can decide how you're going to protect some of the emails that you send out, for example, out of Exchange Online. But when I want to have that classification labeling of data, if I want to be able to track that and get notification for shared documents, and if I also want to protect my on-premises files that might still be stored on on-premises file servers, I again still need enterprise mobility plus security. And then finally, from the identity-driven security piece over there with cloud app security, being able to detect the behavioral issues that might be happening inside of a business with advanced threat analytics, and then the additional risk-based conditional access that Azure Active Directory Premium P2 is going to offer. That's going to again provide you some additional security above and beyond Office 365. And then finally, just a quick slide. I won't drill through this one right here, but if you do have existing Windows 10 customers, hopefully they're buying Office 365 as well. Let's protect those Windows 10 devices again with an enhanced security suite that is Enterprise Mobility Plus Security. Okay, and one more slide here on EMS before I want to just tell you really quickly about one other great kind of offering that we've got, and that is that as I mentioned earlier, a lot of folks will kind of be scared about everything that I've talked about, because it just seems like such a whole host of things that I've got to consider when I'm buying EMS, and they say, look, I don't know if I can implement all of that all at once, let's not do that. Let's take things day by day, solution by solution, and go to your customer with some simple offerings. And what we've done in this particular slide right here is shown the progression of how someone takes a non EMS type environment and slowly brings in individual components to create that final big solution. I love this slide right here because it does a couple of things. First of all, it helps you think about the customer pain points. It then provides a solution, what that attach motion might be against, for example, Office 365 or upgrading Azure Active Directory Premium, for example. It also talks about what you might be selling today from a third-party perspective and some of our competitors, and it also gives you a simple pitch statement down there at the bottom. So as you look at this slide, and again, you're going to get a copy of this deck, you can see here that normally when partners are successful selling EMS, they simply talk about the single sign-on experience, and that wins a lot of deals. They then talk about document protection, the multi-factor authentication security of being able to secure those passwords even stronger than before, talking then about persona management, and finally the device management component, which again, sometimes that stands alone, and you can see that there are some third-party vendors out there that also, that you might be considering as well. But I think that when you look at the complete picture of this just not being a device play, this being an all-up security and identity play, EMS is probably going to be a solution that you should consider. And so with that, I wanted to talk about something that we're really excited about, and that is the Secure Productive Enterprise offering. This has just been made available through the StreamOne portal. It's been available for a couple of months in EAs, for example, in enterprise agreements, but it's fairly new here in the world distribution. And that's Secure Productive Enterprise. Basically what we're saying here is that you want your customer to have the greatest productivity experience that they can have. You want them to be able to have the greatest security experience and mobile device experience that they can have. And we also want to give you the best version of Windows that you can have installed on the device, and that's Windows 10 Enterprise. So when you put all those things together, we're going to provide you that one Secure Productive Enterprise solution and put it into one SKU. So now instead of having to sell individual Office 365, individual Enterprise Mobility Plus Security suites, individual Windows 10 Enterprise SKUs, you can now sell it as one. And so what this is really is an evolution of the Enterprise Cloud Suite that we had in the Enterprise Agreement days, right, or the Select days. So you've got Secure Productive Enterprise E3, and you've got Secure Productive Enterprise E5. And now if you've been in the Microsoft Cloud world for a while, you're finally seeing how that weird naming convention of E3 and E5, how that's really coming together to represent how these things are part of specific suites, right? So now you see that Office 365 Enterprise E3 and Enterprise Mobility Plus Security E3 and Windows 10 Enterprise E3 are obviously part of the Secure Productive Enterprise E3 and so forth for the E5 plan. And so these last slides kind of show you, I love these slides. These are perfect for you to go in and talk to your customers and have this discussion around about moving to the next level, right? With Windows 10 Enterprise E3, here are some core components, and the Windows 10 Enterprise E5, some core components over there. When you move into the Office 365 experience, what's the difference between the E3 plan and the E5 plan? And then finally, what we've been talking about today, showing them how the E5 plan versus E3 plan is going to give them some additional advanced security abilities there. All right, so folks, I haven't seen a lot of questions come into the Q&A pane, but please feel free at this point to go ahead and type in some messages. I have a couple of questions that have come in, and they are specifically regarding how do I start selling the E3 plan or E5 plan of EMS today. And so the good news is that if you have not taken a look at Tech Data's StreamOne platform, you don't know what you're missing, because it is very easy to go in there, do a search for the Enterprise Mobility Plus Security Suite, and get yourself provisioned very, very quickly. And if you have an existing Office 365 account, it's as simple as adding that to the tenant, going in there and providing going in there and finding the user that you want to assign EMS to and checking a box. Right, and so you don't have to have everyone, be exposed to everything right away, but you can have them start using, for example, single sign-on or using information protection, or using Intune as well to get going there. All right, so looking to see if there's any more questions that might be coming in.
And hey, it's Michael, JJ. So if while people are thinking about other questions, any other sort of topics that you wanted just to maybe add to the presentation right now, either referring back to maybe some of the contact info of the program, details that people might want to reference for later? I don't know if you had like a kind of takeaway stuff for them right now.
Yeah, and actually I've got another question that's coming in right here. I mean, so they're asking, they're asking, so I'd like to sell EMS. You just told us about the, about Stream 1. How do I get started? Well, getting started with Stream 1 has to do with the fact that you have to be a cloud solution provider authorized partner. And so that means that if you're a Microsoft partner, you're already well along your way. If you work with Tech Data's Microsoft team, you would sign a CSP rider, or rather a CSP addendum, to make sure that you are authorized then to go through Stream 1 and sell CSP that way. And you can be up and running very, very quickly, because this is a cloud-based product. It's easy to add new users or remove new users inside the CSP world and support them in that way. Some other good questions are coming in. So, when you think about some bundles with Office 365 plus EMS pricing-wise, this is, I can't suggest any pricing for you guys on the phone, but what I've seen a lot of customers do is they go in there and or other partners, is they take Office 365, they take EMS, maybe some Azure backup solutions, and they offer them at a price to their customers where they give them different levels of pricing. And that's what we've kind of done with the E3 and the E5 family of products. You've already seen the estimated retail price. When you go and you work with Tech Data and Stream 1, you will get a certain level of margin that will be there as well. But we don't encourage you to just sell a product based on margin. We want you to build your own services into those bundles and then make different offerings available to them. So, for example, what I might do is I might take Office 365, E3 and EMS E3, and I might offer that as my silver plan. And I might I might add additional margin into what I'm paying, as well as then bundle in my services and offer that on an individual user basis. Then, for example, for the E5 plan, I might call that my gold plan. And with that gold plan, it's already got some of those core components in there of the E5 plans of Office 365 and of EMS. And then obviously I add my premium services, my own MSP type services into that to really offer that out. But guys, our folks on the phone, I mean, there's so much you can do with Microsoft Cloud right now, and you can bundle so many things together, put things together. That's the beauty of the CSP offering. And I encourage you to take a look at Office 365 and EMS, but I also encourage you to take a deeper look into how you can create more of a hybrid environment with Microsoft Azure. And so Tech Data is working hard to bring everything to you through Stream 1 and through the CSP platform that we're providing there. And I encourage you to talk to the Microsoft team to get started. All right. So, Michael, I think I'm all set. There may be a couple questions that we'll take offline here, but I think for the presentation today, we are good to go.
All right. Well, that was a great, very, very speedy and very thorough. JJ, thank you very much. I want to thank everybody from Tech Data and Microsoft for presenting this great info today, and of course JJ, who was our expert, subject matter expert here today. I want to just remind folks that we will be following up with a link with some more information, and that includes the slide deck that we saw today. JJ, thank you very, very much for your time, and I wish you and your team a very happy holidays, and also all of our participants today, rather all of our attendees today. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy day to join us and to hear about enterprise mobility plus security. Clearly, there's a lot of opportunities there for you for growing your business. So that's it. We are going to sign off now, and I wish you all great success with your companies and also a happy and healthy holiday season. Thank you. Bye-bye now.